Practice video for Hoedown Boogie from Sweet Jazz Suite. This is the second violin part. And we're just going to walk through this chunk by chunk, and then I'm going to do a slow run through of the whole piece at the end. All right, so we're starting at measure 3. You're going to come in with the first violins, and as we'll discuss in class, this piece is all about chromaticism. So we're moving by half steps, starting with our B, going to a low 1 B flat, and then really just switching back and forth between B natural, regular 1, and B flat through this whole first line. So let's go nice and slow. I marked those fingerings in for you. So starting on a regular B, just here we go, nice and slow. 1 and 2 and. Nice high 3 at the end for D sharp. Okay, and now we're going to continue that same pattern, but starting with E at number 7, measure 7, E down to E flat and back and forth, then you get back into the B's and B flats that we were doing before. So we're going to go from 7 up until the pick up to 15. Again, nice and slow, just checking out notes here. 3 and 4 and. Okay, so before we move on, let's go back just those last 4 measures and talk about the rhythm and the bowing. So we're going to get some syncopation now. You've got some ties happening between the 2 eighths. There was that 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, measure 11 and 12. And notice, I didn't do it, but there's the 2 up bows. So you're going to hook your bows before going into the tie. So let's just double check those 2 measures. 11 and 12 starting on your F sharp. So again, here's 11. And for right now, too, to help with the tie, feel free to just kind of pulse that second 8th note, and that'll help you know how long to hold that. Okay, let's move on now into 15. So at 15, we're going to be alternating between some B's and open D's. If you notice in the second half of 15, instead of writing all 16th notes out, they kind of took a shorthand and put a slash through the 8th note, but you play those patterns exactly like the first 2 beats of 15. So you just continue the same pattern. If this is tricky for you, feel free to just single it down. So instead of going, just go. Perfectly fine to do that until you can get things up to speed. Okay, we're going to take the pick up into 15, so starting actually on a B flat low 2, then switching up to a high 2 B natural for the rest of the next measure, and you'll see how this part just kind of repeats itself over and over. Here we go, so low 2 going into 15, 1, 2, and 3, and... So then you'll work on speeding that up, keep it just in the balance point of the bow, and we'll work on that later. All right, so now you get some more melodic stuff. You get to slow some note values down. Dotted quarter, eighth note tied to a half rhythm's happening in here. We'll talk about that counting. But again, dotted quarter, hold for 1 1/2, change on the and of beat 2, tying into beat 3 and 4. So here we go at 31, 30, 29, 28, 27 on those Ds at forte. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Rest, rest. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Rest, rest. 2, 3. All right, and now the whole orchestra gets into this eighth note kind of off the beat thing, starting at the pickups at 39. So I wrote the counting in for you guys. So you're going to start on the and of beat 3, and then just count your rests, and you should be all good. And we'll go over who's together and who's playing opposite each other in class. All right, so here's the 3 eighth notes before 39, going down to where it says DS. All right, so I'm going to count the half note and eighth rest, and then we'll come in. 1, 2, and 3. And 2 and 3. And 2 and 3. And 2 and 4. Okay, then you go back to 7 for the DSL coda, and you play until you see that coda sign, which is right after 25, so the circle with the X through it, or the cross through it. And then we jump down to the coda, so right down here, the last 5-ish lines right here. Now luckily, where you jump to the coda is basically the same measure, other than the last beat 4. So we'll start right there where the coda actually starts. We're not going to do the, and then I'll do the first ending in this repeated section. So at 44, all this is little patterns coming down, scale patterns coming down with B flats, and then syncopated rhythms. And we're doing kind of an extended syncopation part here. We'll talk about syncopation in class. But instead of our typical 1 and, so eighth, quarter, eighth, this is going to extend that a little bit. You're going to have more quarter notes played off the beat. So I'm looking at measure 45. All of those will be off the beat. We're going to go 1 and. So the only note on the beat in that measure is the very first note. Everything else will change on the and. And we'll do a lot of that with rhythm work in class. But really, it just repeats itself over and over. So actually, let's take the coda up to 52 so that I can explain the rhythm there. All right, so here's the coda sign. This is measure 43, going up to 52. 1 and 2 and. Note, that F natural, just be careful that's right on beat 4. It's not syncopated like the other measures. And now we're at 52. So we've got some ties happening, 2 eighth note ties just for this first measure. So listen to how 52 goes. Again, you're just doubling this like you were before. So you're just going to hold that D tie into beat 4, then switch to your D sharp up bow. All right, so let's take 52 through that first ending. Ready? And. And then we go right back to 44, do that all over again, take your second ending, and now we're going to take the 3 eighth notes before 57. This is similar to what we did at 39. And then at the end of this, we're just going to do this little chromatic scale, and I put all those fingerings in for you as well. All right, so here's 57 with the 3/8 notes before. So 3/8 before 57. 1, 2, and 3. And 2 and 3. And 2 and 3. So again, just check out those fingerings. We can help you with that in class. The last note, if you just want to play one note or the other, that's fine. But it is bracketed, so it's fun to play the 2 on G, 3 on D. Make sure it's a half step, and you can play that together as a double stop. All right, so now I'm going to go back and play all the way through. I'm not going to do the coda or the repeats, but just so you can have a consistent run through and see if you can play along. I'm going to go just a little bit faster now, so it's up to you to go back, learn all these sections, get it a little bit quicker, and then come back to this video and try this run through. Okay, here we go. Dun, dun, dun. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Takes you right back to 7, so you're going to get your eyes up there, use a highlighter so your eyes can grab it right away. And now here's the coda going to the second ending to finish off the piece. So no repeat right now. Here's the coda. 3, 4. So while I was playing through that, as you go faster, there are alternate fingerings you can do for chromatic parts like this. We'll talk about half position more in class, but if you're going to back to 3 and you're like, you know what, I don't like moving my 1 back and forth so quickly, you can, of course, do this in half position. So you could start, and then instead of moving your 1 up, just put your 2 on your 1 tape, keep it back. So we'll talk about that too. That might be a better alternative for that fingering.